Hi guys, welcome back to the BiGDUG podcast. If you guys have never heard before or never listened, we are interviewing and speaking to some really inspirational people here on our podcast. For everyone coming back, welcome. Today we're speaking to Phil Mills, who is an ex-racing car champion and also has his own business, which we've had the pleasure and delight of supporting at BiGDUG. Phil, welcome. Thank you so much for joining.
Welcome. Thank you.
Phil, I kind of want to hand it over to you to start with and jump straight in and talk about, or you just talk about what your career, why you started and what you've been doing so everybody knows.
Yeah, well, we'd run out of battery on the podcast if I had to do the whole thing. But to summarize, I was a rally co-driver, and I started co-driving before I left school in local sort of club events and things like that, and then progressed on through the ranks really of local championships, British championship, European, and then went on to the World Championship, where I was lucky enough to win each of the stages as I went through, from Welsh to British to World Champion. So that's what I did. It was a bizarre way to earn a living, that's for sure, but I had a book and a pencil and a rubber, and off I went, and it was as simple as that, really. It wasn't as simple as that, but that's how I made my living for 20 plus years.
Mr. Yeah. Modest. So am I right in saying, was it 2003 you were world champion? Is that correct?
2003 world champion, yes.
Yeah.
But before that, a British champion in the 87 and Welsh champion 90 and 89. So go back a long way. But yes, the pinnacle, I suppose, was 2003 when we managed to crack the title.
So how did you get into it? How is racing car driving something you get into?
It's a long story, but we live in central Wales, and I think as a child growing up, it was like unavoidable, because there was a rally going on every weekend, or a motorbike event or something in motorsport. I mean, it's huge in mid Wales. Road racing was a huge scene at that time as well, and road racing was very easy to get into. And we lived in an area where there was a very famous sort of section, and there was selectives or stages, as you know them now. There was 4 of them based in the village where I lived, and they were used at least 3 times a year. So I literally had to stand on the hedge in the garden at about 2 o'clock in the morning, and the cars were passing. So I think it got into the blood that way, you know. And
that's amazing.
It was unavoidable, really, and just got into it. Then the huge rallies used to come, the Welsh International and the RAC rally. That used to come through the village as well. And it just got bigger and bigger, and started entering events. And thought, yeah, this is quite cool. I want to do this. So I think if you're a petrol head and a bit of an officey type, organized type person, you've got the ultimate job, really.
Of course. So for you then, obviously you got into it, and it was, and I don't say this in a disrespectful way, I guess it became a bit of a hobby. At what point did it go from a hobby to a career?
Yeah, well, yeah, I was working in a car dealership, and it became a bit of a full-time job, if you like, and the rallying became quite busy, and I needed to disappear on Fridays and things like that, and it was getting in the way of work a bit. And it was a horrible period where I was so busy with the rallying, but I was doing quite well in my job. And it was a horrible period, and a big uncertain one, whether to leave my job and try and make it as a co-driver professionally. But that came sort of in the early 90s, I suppose, was when that all came around. And I had 2 or 3 seasons of working like crazy just to get time off to go and do the events. And it was really very difficult to make it all work. But we made the right decision in the end, and left my job and started co-driving.
Do you know what's really interesting? I guess it's like anyone who starts their own business, because I guess that was your career and your profession, is that tipping point between the security and safety of a paying job and a salary and a wage against your passion.
It is.
And you kind of took that leap of faith.
I think if you can turn your hobby into a living, some people will say that you've absolutely cracked it. Some people will say that it's not for them and they should always keep it as a hobby. But I turned my hobby into a living. I was doing professionally what I was doing as a hobby anyway, and getting paid and traveling around the world ticket as well. So
seen a lot of the world.
Basically, turned my hobby into a living, and had an absolute ball. And if I had the chance to do it all again, I probably would. I wouldn't
I'm
change.
sure. So for anybody listening who's interested in how you turn that into a living, where did the funding come from? How did you survive? How did you get paid?
Yeah, it was very difficult, but I made sure that the first job I got, I earned enough to put a sandwich on the table, and it pretty much was just that. And I just scrabbled along, really. And I was still trying to make ends meet. I was doing some other work, all in motorsport, but behind the scenes, in between jobs as well, just to try and put a sandwich on the table. And it was really, really tough for quite a few years. And of course, because you were self-employed with this ridiculous job description, when I went to the bank for a mortgage for the house, I think that the woman behind the desk was still rolling around the floor laughing, you know. She said, well, you know, what assets have you got?
What was the job title? You can't say that and not say what the job title was. What did you go to the mortgage broker and say, this is what I do for a living, what's your job?
I can remember going to Barclays Bank actually for a mortgage, and said your job occupation. So we actually was refused instantly. So I went back again and changed it to motorsport consultant, and then that went straight through then. So it was all in the job description. So it was quite funny. But yeah, we just scrabble along, get the jobs that you can, take anything in motorsport just to keep involved, and just scrabbled enough money to keep going, really. And it was really tough.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So at the height of your career, you know, how did it work? Did you get paid by car companies? Did you get paid by sponsorship? How did it work?
Yeah, very simple. We represented a motor manufacturer, and when I won the title, I was with Subaru, and they basically employed us to do the job, and we got paid for it, and it was as simple as that. They then raised the sponsorship. We were sponsored in by BAT and the 555 team. They raised the sponsorship through motor oils and 555 tobacco, and anyone see that side of it, we were just employed to do the job, which was to get that car the fastest around the World Championship. So that that side of the business I didn't really see. But since opening my own team, I'm the other side of the desk now, and I can see exactly where those guys were trying to make ends meet. Very interesting side of the desk, really.
For sure. So let's talk about now then. So what did you tell everybody what you do now and what your business is and how you've gone on?
About 12 or 15 years ago, we decided, I pretty much knew that it was coming out to the car and I was going to step back from full-time competing. And I always wanted my own team. And ironically, I was part of a cutting-edge World Championship team, but I didn't really want to go into modern cars. And my passion was older cars, the cars that I grew up with, which really was, I suppose, the iconic cars of the mid-70s to the late 80s. I suppose that was my, life on Mars period, as it were. And so that was the cars that I was in love with, if you like. And that's what we did. We set up a team reproducing brand new models from the 70s and 80s. We specialized, for instance, in Ford Escort, and we reproduced those brand new. So we set about, there was a few companies doing it. We set about doing it right at the sharp end, producing the highest quality car that we could for the discerning customer who wanted full 7-star service anywhere in the world in a historic car. And that's basically that was the sort of principle of the company, and we've always stood by that, and we've always done that, and we've always supplied that, and something we're very proud of.
That's Viking Motorsport, which is obviously your business.
Yep.
How, obviously, you've gone on a great growth journey. How has COVID affected your business in the pandemic?
Ironically, last year, it all kicked off in March, as we all know. Ironically, we had the busiest summer and autumn and winter on record, and we shouldn't have done, because the events that we were doing were all cancelled. But the car bills that we got and were involved with far outweighed the events that we missed. So we were extremely busy, but we shouldn't have been. And it's all a bit bizarre, really. I can't understand how we're still producing new cars for events that aren't happening anymore. But we are extremely busy. Even now, to this day, we've got orders in the book for way, way into the future. And yeah, it is a bit bizarre that in a world where it doesn't allow hospitality and events, we're still producing product to go into hospitality and events. So, but may long it continue. But
That's
the answer to the question is it didn't affect us at all. Not at all. In fact, it might have done us a tiny little favor because we pulled our belt up a little bit. We stopped going away on events and we had more time back at base and concentrating on things in a slightly different way. So it's probably helped us in a weird way.
Which is, I'm really glad to hear that, and that you're really lucky, because there's obviously so many businesses out there that have just literally fallen off a cliff overnight, and it's nice to see that you guys are still not only surviving but growing. One thing I'd love to know is, obviously you started the business, what was it like when you first started, and what's that growth been like, and how has it been for you personally?
Yeah, well, we started with a blank sheet of paper and 4 walls, and with a very empty workshop and 4 walls, and we literally grew it from nothing. So it was difficult. There was just 2 of us. There's now 9, and when we go away on event, there's 18 of us. So we're quite a big team when we hit the road. But yeah, it's grown hugely in the last sort of 12, 14 years, I suppose. And it was never meant to be like that. It was only supposed to be a little hobby business with me and a couple of lads drifting in at 10 o'clock in the morning and going home at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and having a round of golf and all that. But how wrong that was. It
seems like you've got a bit of a knack, Phil, for turning a hobby into a business.
It's more like 7 till 7, and I can just about find the time to go and sleep. But yeah, it was never meant to be what it is today. It was always supposed to be a very low-key hobby business, and it's now turned into something much greater than that.
But that's great, though, isn't it? Something that you've built and you're proud of, surely.
Sorry, you're breaking up. Let's try again.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, try again.
Yeah, I said, surely that's the dream, isn't it? Having something which you've created and is growing, and more than just a hobby.
It is, yeah. We've created something, and it's. I do pinch myself sometimes and look back on what we've achieved. Actually, the trips that we've done across Central Africa and Australia and New Zealand and South America, and some of the clients and the trips that we've achieved and the results that we pulled off in the sport. I do sit back sometimes and pinch myself. Because you're always caught up in this whirlwind of work and traveling. And yeah, sometimes it's nice, for instance, during the COVID period, to sit back and reflect and just pat yourself on the back and see what you've done,
Sure. So what's the future then? So continue to grow the business or keep it steady?
It is. We could see we were a little bit top heavy on rally sport, and we could see that rallying was obviously taking a kick in. So we decided to sort of just split the business a little bit, and we decided to do some historic touring car racing, which is quite exciting. And we went into pre-war cars. So pre-war endurance rallies are big business, a very, very, very different business. Okay, you've still got a car with 4 wheels, but these events are for pre-war. So we just finished a 1939 Chevy. And for events such as Peking to Paris, which are 41 days long, and the extreme endurance business is quite big. So we've started putting a toe in the water in that. Just to be not totally reliant on rally. So we've got long distance rally now, domestic sprinting rally, and plus some touring car racing. So we've splintered the business only because if one of those sectors went quiet, we could just jump on the other 2 then. And that's worked quite well, actually. We're just in the first phase of that now, and that's starting to happen quite well.
Very exciting. And hopefully as and when the pandemic lifts and we all get back to a sense of normality, start growing even bigger for you.
I hope so, yeah. Well, things need to change, but I don't really want to grow the business too much more. I just want to consolidate what I've got and just do a really nice job for like I said before, for the discerning client. And I don't want to go too big. You'd start to lose quality and the personal touch when you go too big. So we're getting quite close to that point now, I would say.
Sure. And I think we'll probably, end on, if there's lots of people going to be listening about, lots of people have got passions and hobbies, but they're stuck in the grind of 9 to 5. For you, what advice would you give to anyone listening that has real passion and they want to get to that tipping point of leaving their job and pursuing their passion?
I truly believe it doesn't matter what you want, you will actually get it. And it doesn't matter if there's a particular model car or something that you fancy, you will actually get that at one day. And it doesn't matter if you've got a career in mind and the ultimate end of that career, doesn't matter what it is. But I think if you want something in life bad enough, eventually you will get it. And you have to work your butt off, don't get me wrong. And there's a lot of blood, sweat and tears along the way. But you will actually get it in the end. And I am a true believer of that. If you want it bad enough, you will get it. And that's the only advice I would say. If you've got a goal, you will get it. It's just the bit in between that if you don't bottle out on the bit in between, you will definitely get there in the end.
Yeah, sure. Amazing. I guess this may, we can obviously potentially finish the podcast there. So I'll probably just say, Phil, but I'll carry on talking. So I want to talk a little bit about BiGDUG, if that's okay. But Phil, thank you so much for joining the BiGDUG podcast and talking about your amazing journey. I hope it's inspired a lot of people. If there's any final words you want to say before we
No, that's great. And it's all part of the big equation. And obviously, even our very organized store system that we have wouldn't be possible without the BiGDUG. So I've got to mention that. And it's made our life extremely easy over the years, and it's getting easier all the time with all the bits that's coming out. But no, it's great to chat to you guys and stay in touch.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you everybody for listening. Make sure you subscribe and like our podcast for more inspirational chats like this. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Phil. I would
love.
Yeah, it was honestly amazing. What I'd also love to talk to you about while I've got you is, probably won't go in the podcast because it's not the reason for the podcast, but your experience with BiGDUG would be amazing, kind of what we've done for you, just so I have that separately. If you could kind of talk to me about what BiGDUG helped you with, that would be awesome.
Well, now then, I didn't mention it in that, but when I was a boy, a long time ago, and I was basically national rallying in the UK, and there was quite a little family that used to go around. And I was with a very extremely wealthy guy called Brian Bell. And if you remember Bell Fruit Machines, you put the coin in, pull that. Well, he was Mr. Bell, and I used to rally with him. And there was a big gang of people that was involved anyway. But part of the gang was a guy called Adrian Jeffries.
Okay. And
he was a co-driver, same as me, doing national rallies to weekend. Anyway, we were putting a brand new building up, and I needed a lot of racking and a lot of decking and storing and that. So I just wrote a quick email to inquiries at BiGDUG and sort of said, look, I'm putting this huge shed up. I need all sorts of stuff. Who do I speak to? Because, I need some pretty quirky stuff. And purely by chance, Adrian saw that email in the office and he said, that's Phil. And he wrote to me and he said, it is Phil, who used to go rallying, isn't it? This is Adrian who used to do rallying. And it was like, my God, I can't believe it. So we phoned each other, and it was like we hadn't seen each other or spoken to each other since God knows. And he said, I tell you what, I'm doing some visits in the area. Let me call in and have a chat. So Age called in. I couldn't believe it. It was just what a fantastic opportunity to catch up with him. And he said, no, I've been working with BiGDUG all this time and all this. So that was a really funny
the way things go, eh?
It really was just bizarre. And I think he only saw it by chance in the office, the email that I'd written. It was so funny. So that's how it all came around. But yeah, I mean, the system that BiGDUG operates is quite simple once you get your head into it and how it works and all the sizing and all that sort of thing. So it took us a while to get our head into it, but it's so simple. We we just measure up what we've got, send the order in, and it arrives. It fits, it clunks together quickly, and yeah, it's just a mega product. Absolutely.
Yeah, because it's boltless, isn't it? So it literally just slots in.
It's just a brilliant product for us. It goes up quickly. There's no mess, there's no hassle, and we just bang it up. We just built this new storage shed, and Age is coming up to see it now quite soon. And yeah, we're just really happy. We wouldn't be going anywhere else, to be honest.
So what did you have? Shelving, racking, storage boxes, parts bins?
Yep, the full hit, yeah. Mainly pallet racking, normal racking behind me, boxes coming up where he is, and whatever, yeah.
Because you've obviously got a lot of parts and stuff, and obviously all the
cars
have got all the bits and bobs that they need for.
I mean, compared to some of the Formula One teams, we're just minnows, we're tiny. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's good stuff, and we're completely decked out with it now. It's good. Yeah.
And I'm sure Adrian gave fab service.
He did actually. He came up, he was really good. It was so nice to speak to him because I hadn't spoken to him for such a long time. It was a great catch up, and we're in touch now again, so that's brilliant. Yeah.
Listen, that's a winner, is that? And Phil, honestly, I'm really grateful for your time.
No, that's good. That's good.
Thank you so much.